Hello everyone, welcome back to the KMTRADERS channel. So this is the full market analysis volume 66. So this week has been a crazy week, again with the FOMC pulling a lot of the markets to one side. So a lot of pushes into the market, so this one's going to be quite an interesting week, and hopefully over the next few days or so we can really position ourselves into taking advantage of the market conditions right now. So we are going to leave gold and Euro USD for tomorrow. Just want to talk about those into more detail. But without further ado, we'll start off with NZDUSD. So we were looking at through last week, we were waiting for some sort of pullback, and that would have been that entry that we could consider. And you could have taken this as a retest there, but again, for me, I'm just waiting for a bigger retest. So we can see that there is a lot of strength towards the downside, and we're getting closer and closer to 0.69, which is a very good level to watch out for. So again, what I'm personally looking out for now is just to really see if we can still push lower. So what we could expect through next week is just some sideways moving price action, really. And I'll be looking out for price to recover some part of this drop off. So whether we get some sort of retracement towards potentially 0.7 and onwards, and then we're just simply waiting for one more push towards the downside, and that's all I really want to focus for now, because towards the up and coming weeks we could be looking at a long-term shift towards the upside, which we could potentially start to look into 0.74 and even going a lot higher. But we are coming towards the end of this downside move. I just really want to see if we can continue to push lower and really start to wait for the next big move in the market over the next few weeks. So yeah, really just wanting to see if we can still continue to push lower, and really just take advantage of this sell-off opportunity right now, and see if we can squeeze in a good 100 or so pips here, and see if we can hit 0.69. So essentially, if price starts to recover through start of the week and this being the low, then so be it. But the alternative is that price pushes just a bit lower and then starts to recover. They're equally valid trading ideas. So don't be put off if price starts to continue to drop off. There could be some more potential moves overall in the long run, just for more moves towards the downside. So just keeping my eyes peeled for that opportunity over the next few days. So now moving on to AUDUSD. So pretty much what we were looking out for this was a potential move towards the upside and then that drop off. But obviously we can see that this move towards the downside was just really enough for price action to drop off. And as we must have discussed from last week, there was two options where price would make a retracement and then drop off, or the price would just drop off immediately through the week. So yeah, we can see that the second scenario did work out in the end. So where I'm stand out for this week, because we were aiming for 0.75. Now really just looking at how strong this move towards the downside is, I just don't really see that for now anyway, that there could be any sort of change towards the upside. So I really want to see if we can do a similar process with NZDUSD, in the sense where we wait for some sort of recovery and then we wait for that one final sell-off, and just to see how price reacts to this from that point onwards. And then from then, obviously, if this does happen, we can then review price action from then moving onwards. So as we've now hit 0.75, this is where we're going to now, like I said, always wait for the reactions for once we see our price targets hit. So as we can see here, this is actually quite strong. I'm seeing that there is a potential move for further downside opportunity just because of the way the sell-off opportunities are occurring. We just simply have to stay patient and just see if we can make one more move towards the downside. So whether that, if it takes a few days or a few weeks to recover and then that final sell-off, that can still happen. So don't expect this to happen instantaneously in a day or a week. Obviously this can take however long it really does want to do so, but really I just want to focus on a selling opportunity for now, just to be safe, and don't really want to go against this trend that we've got right now. So that's where I stand with AUDUSD for now. Moving on to USDJPY. So for this one, I am looking out for a sell-off opportunity. So what I did think that this was the absolute high, and I did think that we could start to push over lower. We didn't actually find any opportunity to do so. We had this huge strength there, and that's obviously through the FOMC. So what I'm looking out for now is just to see if we can do the same thing really, and if we can stay below 111. I really want to see if price can make one final move up towards the upside and then drop off, or the other scenario is that we get that drop off straight away and then we start to break this uptrend and even work our way towards 107, which is all the way down here, this zone here, which is obviously a very long way down, but again I think there is a capability of price pushing lower. The other alternative is if we start to see price break above 111, then we could be looking at some potential bullish opportunities, and if that does happen, we will obviously have to give that update and wait for us to dissect the market throughout that week, and then we can go ahead and start to consider more good opportunities moving forward. So but for now I'm quite confident that we could potentially get over towards the downside, and if we can do so, again, it will be pretty obvious with price action that it does want to fall off. And it shouldn't be too complicated to really recognize that price is selling off, because we'll get something like this maybe throughout this reaction above here. So again, we'll see what happens over the next few days with the USDJPY, and we'll just keep our eyes peeled out for that. So so for CADJPY, again, we had two opposing scenarios here, that if we started to see a break off here, then this would be our scenario. As we see at the 89.5 level, we started to see that break instantly. We had that strong drop off. So ultimately this had this was the good ultimatum for price to be convinced that the price was selling off now. So now that we can get rid of that, we can clearly see now that the because we now had that break at 89.5, there was no reason for us to even consider price pushing up higher now. So that instantly removed that situation there. And now we can just really focus now on this continuated sell-off opportunity now. So we can see prices obviously dropping off quite heavily. I don't really want to focus on any other type of move apart from a sell-off right now, and just purely based on how strong that we've seen that drop off through the FOMC and how it really did respond. So ultimately, we're just waiting for some sort of reaction and a recovery through the week, and then that drop off for that continuated momentum to potentially push us into 86 or even to 85, which is all the way down there that we can see here. So all the way to this level is a very long way, but even if we could get to 85, that would be a great level to mark out. But like I always do say, just be curious of how the market recovers. So if you do make a good 100 or so pips, consider taking some profits off the table, or even taking some profits at the same time. It totally depends upon you, but definitely I wouldn't advise holding all the way down here, just in case price does rally towards the upside and losing all of your profits again. So yeah, that's pretty much where I stand for this week for CADJPY is just waiting for some sort of recovery and then seeing if there can be some sort of sell-off opportunity throughout the week. So definitely we'll keep an eye out for this one. EJ, so for this one, we were just waiting for some sort of recovery, and again we were waiting for that so the recovery, and then essentially the the ultimatum for price to drop off again. So we just have to wait for price action to do so, and as we can see, we've had that huge drop off here. So essentially we just need to wait, like the other pairs, for that recovery and then that drop off again, so for that retest. So as we can see, price is just nicely dropping off ever so nicely here, breaking that intermediate uptrend and the other longer term uptrend. So now that we can get rid of these, we can make it just to clear it up just a little bit nicely, that potentially price can do this once more, and then potentially do something like this. The other thing that I was also questioning as well is that if price is dropping off so heavily, we could get some sort of retest towards this uptrend. So the scenario is that we could get something like this where price does, overall in the long run, something like that, where we start to see some sort of bullish pressure coming in. But again, I feel like this won't happen anytime soon. I feel like this could happen in the next week or so. But this is just I'll throw that in. Why not? Just for more, just for my observations for the up and coming week. But we could expect, in the long run, some sort of bullish activity just because of how strong price had dropped off and it hadn't retested our uptrend. So, staying quite clearly patient for this, that we could be anticipating price to potentially come into retesting this at some later date. So we'll just keep an eye on that for that potential opportunity in the future. So moving on to NZDJPY. So yeah, for this we were looking out for some sort of retrace at some point, so for price to make some sort of recovery and then a drop off. So as we can see here, price had made the drop off at this point here, so here, and then made that significant drop. Unfortunately, price completely rallied towards the downside very early in the morning, so in the 2 a.m. for us within that candle, so didn't really get a chance to take in that trade. But nonetheless, that's what happens with trading. We just have to stay alert for any trades that are available to us in our sessions. So moving forward from this, what we could expect is price to make some sort of recovery again, and then continuating this move towards this zone here. That's where we are potentially aiming, and even considering a counter trend. That's if you do want to, that's still a good amount of pips if you did want to squeeze into that. Again, just be careful that this will take a lot more time to recover and to get your pips. So as a counter trend, you just have to be careful that you could be exposed to the downside more often, and the downside opportunities can take you out a lot more. So that's obviously just the opposing risk. So that's just something to consider if you do want to take a counter trend. But again, long term, for the next few days and a few weeks, we're looking out for some selling opportunities just to add on to this momentum to the downside. So that's ultimately where we're looking at for that. So AUD, looking at our last 3 pairs now, so AUDJPY. Again, a similar situation here. We are looking out for some more continuation lows. What we could be looking out for is just more of that recovery again in that sense. So what we were looking at from last week is just that for price to make a low and then some sort of retest, and that's all we have to do for this week again, guys. So essentially just waiting for some sort of again that recovery and then that push off lower. Again, these are just rough estimations of where price could go. We could get price to recover here and then drop off, or it could be a bigger rally up and then drop off. It really just depends where price wants to go, really, and that's where you have to be vigilant on the market. So again, with the counter trend move, a good 100 or so pips, that can obviously be taken from a counter trend move, but of course you run the risk of getting stopped out through the higher time frame bias, which is towards the downside. So that's why if you do want to take those counter trend trades, just be careful. That's all I do recommend saying. So yeah, that's pretty much for that. So coming into our last 2 pairs, USDCHF. So what we were anticipating was a potential move to the downside and then that rally up, but nonetheless we had that rally towards the upside. So all we can do simply now is just wait for the long-term projection on this. So what we were looking at in our second option was price to make that push up and then retest. So we were still waiting for some sort of retest and then a push up higher. So now judging at how price is really pushing up higher aggressively, I want to see something where price does something like this, and then we can discuss what can happen here if we do reach this price action run, because I believe that there can be a good buying opportunity if it does dip low enough for another good 100 or so pips. And the other opposing scenario is that if this does happen, we have to be careful, because what could happen is we could get an absolute melt in the market, and watch for price action to recover this move because it is quite strong towards the upside, and we didn't really get any form of retest. So if we start to make one more recovery and then a push higher, at some point we will need to make some sort of recovery on a bigger scale. So that's where we could be looking at a potential sell-off opportunity once we start to make that new high that we created here. So I wouldn't be surprised if we started to make some sort of drop off soon if we did make this scenario. So again, the first setup is something like this, where we could expect a drop off and then a push higher, and then through potentially, if this does happen within a week, the next week or the next setup could be something where we start to see a sell-off opportunity, and we could just target the mid-range of this in a 50% fib, or the 618 golden ratio. It depends where you want to see where price goes to. But yeah, ultimately we want to see how price responds, but that's something, like I said, just throw it in there in the next few days or so in the future, where we could potentially look into. But again, this is just my thoughts and perspective on USDCHF, just because we missed out on the opportunity for that huge push towards the upside. But again, nonetheless, it's fine. It's part of the bigger picture, which is waiting for the next trade. So that's pretty much where we stand for USDCHF, and yeah, we'll just see what happens with that one. So yeah, finally with USDCAD, what we can see here is we're just simply waiting for some sort of retest, and then we've had that absolute huge rally now. So now that we can see prices pushing up higher and higher, a similar story with USDCHF is that I want to see price more or less now potentially look at turning over. So I am looking at 1.26 and 1.275 as a potential level of resistance. So what we could be looking at is potentially price to do something like this and then turn over towards the downside, but not necessarily running into 1.2 just as yet. I just want to see how price responds over making that or creating that new high, for example. So we do have two trading opportunities that we could be a part of. Again, it just depends how deep we can really retrace and then push up higher. So we get a buy, and then we could be looking at a sell. And as we can see here, now that I pulled up the RSI, we're in an overbought condition. So we could be looking at a nice sell-off opportunity very soon. So it just really depends what the market wants to do. But again, throwing in the few some ideas in the future run, and it really just depends what happens with the market right now. And I got 1.27 and 1.27 and 1.26 as a potential area of a rebound, so potential resistance level that we could be hitting. So I just want to see how price reacts. We're coming and approaching at 1.25, which I think is where we could get some sort of reaction, but I think we could get into 1.26 just purely based on where some of the retesting of this uptrend can lie. So we've got some retest to play in. So yeah, we can really just take advantage of what we can see right now, and just really following momentum with the other pairs. So again, guys, it's been a very big week for the markets. Again, if you feel like you've missed out on a trade, like I always say, there's plenty of opportunities that come about with the market. Again, like I said, even if you didn't get into a trade, just think about the opposing side, that there's people out there who have lost a lot this week, and obviously if that is you, then don't worry. There's always opportunities to counteract that. You just have to think in abundance, in the sense of there's always opportunities coming around the corner. And like I said, this is the reason why we do these full market analysis, just to give you a bit more hope for the week. And that for all of the pairs, I always discuss opportunities that you can take advantage of, and all you have to do is just really stay patient with it, really. So I do hope this video does help you guys, and of course, if you made it all the way to the end, I do appreciate your time for watching. We do have a trading group that you can join. That link is in the description, and of course, if you have any other questions, feel free to let me know. So thank you very much for listening, guys, and we'll see you all in our next video.